for the previous Windows operating system, with Windows XP, there was an OEM key. And with this OEM key, you could activate the computer without an internet activation. And this was done and required for big companies. And with Windows Vista and Windows 7, they have changed that. There are not just keys that you enter and then you just have it activated and no internet connection required. But they have modified it that you have a special table which is created by the BIOS in your system, which identifies the computer as OEM. And if you have the table and a certificate and the key, then you don't need an internet activation. And this is very interesting because Microsoft has a secret agreement with the computer manufacturers and to include the table, and if the table is included, then it says, okay, it's OEM, it accepts the certificate and the key, and there's no internet activation required. And the special thing is that it's all done by software, and so you can also spoof it. And actually, it's also spoofed already, and it all goes to a small table, the software licensing internal code, which are just 374 bytes, which contains an RSA key, and which is just based on ACPI tables. And here you see the structure of it. The RSDP, the root system descriptor pointer, points to another table, and that table points to some other tables which are responsible for handling different things like the processor configuration, the multiplicator, making faster, slower, and providing some capabilities like shutting down the system and hibernation. And these are just used to identify the computer. And it was invented in 2000. And the BIOS sets these tables up, and Windows and all operating systems can use them and interpret them, which is a much more secure way than it was previously done. And this special table is not different than the others, which describe just the system and what features it has and how the system just acts. And so this table just identifies it as OEM. And here you also see you can simply trace it down, and you can go to a system that has this table and just copy it out. And when you have it, you can extract it, and you can also write a bootkit and let the bootkit writing the table, and then your computer would be spoofed as OEM. And beside the SLIC table, you also need to have the certificate and the key. And here you see the contents of the SLIC table, just 374 bytes. And it's built up with a description header, a short header, the first 4 lines, which identify the table, which is just a normal ACPI table. And then you have the RSA key and some other stuff that is used. And here is also the OEM identifier, which is important because you need the same OEM identifier for the certificate and for the table and for the key. And if they are all matching, then the system will be noticed as from the manufacturer and will be activated. And you can also use these 3 things from another computer, like from an ASA, and put it on a Dell, and it still works. And the certificate is not that big. It's a simple text file, and you just have to install it using available script. And this is also done automatically for huge installations of Windows. The OEM key is also required. This is the last step. And if Windows notices the table and the install certificate, then it will accept the OEM key and will activate it without any other requirements. And this is the system log pre-installation master product key. So you use this just for all notebooks. And there was previously last week also in the news that for Windows 7 there was also the master product key leaked, so which could be used for activating then all computers in the world using the SLIC table and using the certificate. So what Microsoft did was just changing the key for the manufacturer and then just blacklisting it, which is not a good solution because, of course, next week when it comes out, then they just can grab the key and everything and just redo the thing. And as I've mentioned, Rootkit can also set up this stuff. And this is also done by the Vista loader. There are different builds available, and most contain a Trojan or virus. And this automatically installs a short bootkit based on grub that inserts the table and registers the certificate and also registers the product key. So it's a full automated way to make your Windows genuine. And of course you can also do that manually on some Chinese hacker sites where the steps published that you have to unprotect your BIOS, and then you take the BIOS and in a hex editor you just replace another ACPI table. In that case the table was replaced which is responsible for handling an older ACPI systems, so it's not any loss for new operating systems, new systems. And they make that just hardwired, so including this table instantly and not just moving it every time on boot. And of course Microsoft knows about it and does also things about it. They are also blogging about it in the VGA blog. And what they are actually doing is not changing the method, but they are just trying to find these tools and make signatures of it and just blacklisting it, and they are pushing out new Windows updates to detect them, and if they detect it then they will invalidate your Windows copy, and then you will get such screens, and then they will say you have an activation exploits and illegal, and they want to protect you because the software is often harmful and contains stolen software. And they also say that you might be a victim of counterfeiting. And so it's not changing the method of it, but just recognizing the tools. And so it's simple for Rootkit because it must just stay under the radar. It must not be able to detect it, and then it can just move every time the table. And the point is that the Rootkit started before Windows, so before Windows started, the table is added and Windows will detect it. And for the installation, there are, of course, two different methods available. Either you need physical access or administrator rights on the Windows operating system. For physical access, you can just take a live CD or a live USB stick or floppy and infect the drive. Or under Windows, you have to get administrator rights, and under Windows Vista, elevated administrator rights. Otherwise, it will refuse to overwrite the masterboot record. And to get these rights, you can either put a manifest into your executable, or you do that on runtime using shell execute. And here you have a social engineering vulnerability because you can call shell execute always in a loop, and then always the pop-up comes, the consent user interface, which always asks, do you really want to execute the software? And when you say no, then you are just again calling it, and then the whole time the dialog comes and everything out is grayed out and you can't do anything. So this would be a quite effective way to gain administrator rights. And here you see it, you have to put the manifest file into the executable, and then when you start it, Windows automatically asks for it, for the rights. You